Monster Hunter is a series I feel like needs no introduction. Its very basic premise of kill big creature has been a staple of other games and franchises. Monster Hunter, though, has been one of the only franchises that's maintained a strong cult following with multiple further installations. While names like Dauntless and Wild Hearts have come and gone, Monster Hunter seems to be here to stay. With all that being said, its latest entry, Monster Hunter Wilds, has been divisive. While I could extrapolate this psychotic freakout to the lions that are Monster Hunter fans while I stand before them like an unflinching monkey, it would probably be more productive to talk about the game itself. After all, the meltdown of the fandom only matters if you actually give a shit. So let's talk about Monster Hunter Wilds, a game that I'm not afraid to say that I love. The story of Monster Hunter Wilds is not good. Okay, I guess I should be a bit more forgiving and say that the actual characters are really good, but the actual driving plot is not. To quickly summarize, you arrive in the Forbidden Lands on a big sand boat. The Forbidden Lands are just an unexplored area of the world that is mostly dominated by a massive desert. The early story is nothing to write home about, with you just getting a feel for the world. During your expeditions of the desert, the forest, an oil swamp, and an icy mountain, you see the main driving force behind most of the strange happenings around the regions. The four apex monsters, Raydao, Uthuna, Nu Udra, and Jindahad, all of which are incredibly powerful monsters that completely alter the region around them. During these meetings, though, you find something that is somehow more powerful, more dangerous, and more mysterious. Arkfeld, an unknown monster that is unlike any monster that exists, being able to physically drain energy from other monsters with its chain-like wings. After a lot of nonsense quests and stopping the different apexes, you make your way to the ruins of Wyveria. Here you find that a lot of other monsters are similar to Arkfeld in terms of habits, but are also similar to monsters we know and love. These are labeled as Guardian-type monsters. Their behavior differs from their normal variants in that they don't eat things because they don't have organs in the traditional sense, instead absorbing energy from the earth and other Guardian monsters. Now you might be thinking, why is Arkfeld different from these monsters if by the game logic they should be operating under the same restrictions of only taking energy from the earth? And to that I say, eventually managed to corner Arkfeld, which has now been classified as a Guardian, and finally kill it. After killing Arkfeld, you learn that the core of Wyveria is probably going to explode if you don't stop this big dragon Zoshia. While Zoshia kinda comes out of nowhere, the fight itself is really fun, and it's definitely a good send-off, riding the high that was the Guardian Arkfeld encounter. After the main story wraps up, unfortunately, the next few hours aren't interesting from a story perspective, but you do fight some of my favorite monsters in the game, as well as getting to rematch Arkfeld, who somehow was able to lay eggs despite A, not having a mate, and B, literally having no organs. I'll get back to the monsters in a moment, but I should probably talk about why the story doesn't really work, and I can boil it down to one main reason. While the characters are all endearing and likable, a lot of the decisions made by the side characters are kinda dumb. For instance, one of the earliest story conflicts is that a village in the desert has literally no weapons and no ways to defend themselves. They try to justify this by saying that they can ward off monsters using a special chime. And you know what happens? Monsters break into the village anyway and force them out. Would it really have killed them to train a few people to hunt monsters in case something happened? If we weren't here, this entire village would have been flattened by monsters. Things like this happen over and over again in this story. And trust me, I tried to go into the story with an open mind. I really did. And the story did a lot of good for Monster Hunter. It made all the characters unique and actually made me want to work with them and save them when things got dicey. It made me actually care about this world and my hunter and made me curious as to what we would explore next. But every single event in this story could have been solved if every side character we met along the way had an ounce of foresight. Gripes with the story aside, you don't play Monster Hunter for the story. You know this, I know this, we all know this. Nobody plays Monster Hunter for the story. You play for the gameplay, which, let me get up on my soapbox here. I think Monster Hunter Wilds has the most engaging combat with normal monsters in the entire Monster Hunter series. It's really hard to describe what makes Monster Hunter a fun game to play because a lot of the things I love about the gameplay and combat are very surface level. So, without being too disingenuous, I want to try to explain why Monster Hunter combat is so satisfying. Monster Hunter as a game has always been focused on a sort of David and Goliath sort of gameplay loop. While any monster can flatten you in a second, you have to claw at every advantage you can get. The difference, to me at least, between Monster Hunter and games that people like to compare it to, like Soulsborne games, is that Monster Hunter is more about managing resources and openings to attack, rather than in Dark Souls, where once you know the boss's attacks, you basically win the fight. In Monster Hunter, every single weapon has a high committal attack or combo that you need to find openings for. Whether that's from the monster not facing you or recovering from their own attack, it's up to your own judgment to find out if an attack or combo is going to be safe. This effectively puts you on the back foot for most of the fight, constantly dodging and weaving through bites and claws of a monster in order to find the meager advantages you can capitalize on. Each little victory feels satisfying, and it makes long strings of these small victories feel euphoric, since you as a player know how fast it can be taken away from you. These points are also influenced by the monster's current state, which I personally separate into 3 categories: normal, enraged, and exhausted, all of which are pretty self-explanatory. Getting good at balancing what attacks can be used where and when to fall back and defend is the core of Monster Hunter combat, which all culminates into a satisfying slam on the monster's face, knocking them over. Knocking the monster down completes this perfect gameplay loop of Monster Hunter, since for once you get to be on full aggression, using your strongest attacks and throwing every single grain of damage into the monster before it recovers and the loop starts over again. This also enhances the enrage and exhaustion phases in the complete opposite direction. If you get a knockdown during the monster's enraged state, it feels immensely rewarding, since you stop the monster's most dangerous state and cut down its enrage timer, while getting a knockdown in exhaustion, while still satisfying, is lesser than the other states, since the monster was already slower than a snail in molasses anyway. This combat loop is basically the same throughout every Monster Hunter though, so what makes Wilds so much better than the others? Well, Wilds introduces a special combat mechanic called wounds. Wounds show up periodically on highly damaged areas of a monster and slowly form over time, starting as these faded white scars over a monster's body and eventually opening into a large red gash. Hitting this tear while in focus mode, basically ADSing for Monster Hunter, and then using a specialized attack, you'll break the wound, dealing a big chunk of damage, and depending on the weapon, get some sort of bonus or opportunity to deal even more damage. This works perfectly for Monster Hunter because it rewards you even more for getting consistent hits through the monster's attacks, rewarding skilled players with even more damage and a chance at a knockdown. With such a great system, it's hard for me to imagine people complaining about it. I will say though, this wound mechanic does make the game easier for seasoned hunters, but the game was already going to be easier anyways if you knew Monster Hunter, so I guess that doesn't really change much. The difficulty, to me at least, was never really the focus of Monster Hunter. A game doesn't need to be hard to be good. It just needs to be a good, well-designed game. And I'm sure most people will be rational like me and agree that difficulty does not need to be a factor into your basic enjoyment of this game. That's the basic gameplay loop of Monster Hunter, and despite the initial hours being incredibly easy, so is Rise and World, and besides, the game picks up its difficulty pretty heavily with the arch-tempered apexes. So, quick explanation, in the post-game you can find monsters in special tempered forms, which are more difficult versions of the same monster, boasting more difficult combo attacks and higher damage and health. Arch-tempered apexes are similar to their normal tempered counterparts, but the numbers are cranked up even higher and have some completely new combos or attacks that aren't seen in any other variant. Again, I'll go over the arch-tempers in a bit, but I really quickly want to talk about the soundtrack and music. I wrote soundtrack and music. For some reason, a lot of people seem to think that this game doesn't look as good as World. I call bullshit. This game is way better visually. World, despite its color, is definitely a bit less saturated than Wilds is, and maybe it's just me, but higher contrast works way better for this series. Each area is also wholly unique from each other, even if a few share similarities with World. Big forest, big desert, big ice mountain, etc. None of them are as tedious to explore than the ones in World, though. Helping navigation is a special kind of mount called a secret. If you remember the Palamutes from Rise, basically those. They move fast, can take special shortcuts, and help map out all the areas way easier than if you're just going on your own. Not only that, but they can take you to whatever monster you're fighting automatically without you needing to control them, skipping the downtime between the action and allowing you to appreciate the ambience of each area even more. I'm sure most people will appreciate the Secrets Edition and will have zero complaints about them whatsoever. Getting back to the visuals though, World had the problem that a lot of weapons were just kind of the base weapon with a little fur or bone put on it. That was mostly alleviated with Iceborne, but thankfully Wild skipped the boring part and went straight for the batshit insane weapon and armor designs. I've been slowly going through and gathering most of the armor in the game for glams, and I gotta say, the team at Capcom did a stellar job. The music, by contrast, isn't super interesting. No area in the game has the same addicting listen that was the Monster Hunter World OST, or even rises for that matter. And while the Apex monsters theme are incredible, none of them have the same punch as Nergigante's theme, Velkhana's theme, or even Magnamalo or Malzeno's theme. Now that I've gone over the visuals and music, let's finally get on to the Arch-Tempered monsters, along with a special guest who I wasn't expecting initially.
Let's see how fast you can really go.
Arch-Tempered Ray Dow is the first Arch-Tempered monster you'll fight, and likewise it's probably the easiest. Maybe I just had Ray Dow's moveset drilled into my head from fighting him so many times to get his armor, but this guy isn't unique enough moveset-wise to really bump up the difficulty from his normal tempered variant. One thing that's going to become a staple in these fights are the "You're Dead Now" moves. Monster Hunter is no stranger to nuke attacks, but these are very different in the fact that they just kind of happen. At least Ray Dow is nice enough to give you a good warning signal before letting it rip, letting you just barely dodge or block the attack. For this fight, I would either recommend something insanely mobile like Dual Blades or Longsword, or something defensive like Gun Lance, Sword and Shield, etc. Ray Dow has a pretty notable weakness to ice, so any weapon from Jindaha will do. Make sure to pack some lightning res and paralysis negation, and you're pretty much all set. When it comes to actual strategies fighting him, I mostly played the tank role, trying to maintain aggro while keeping the heat off everyone else. Because of that, my playstyle heavily revolved around blocking his bigger attacks and perfect guarding his smaller ones to save on health, and hopefully getting a follow-up from faster recovery. It didn't always work, but it was enough to keep the lightning away from my teammates and win this one pretty handily on the first try.
Oh, that's my fault. Make you think that. I saw him.
I'm a chud. I get mad when other white people, because I'm also a white person, I get mad when other white people mispronounce the Japanese characters' names in my Japanese video game about teenage girls.
I hate
What?
Excuse me?
That was going to get the video?
That's going in the video 100%, bro.
Awesome.
Alright. I'm honestly surprised we did that first try.
I think that was the fastest I've ever seen him die after going
Yeah,
to
after
sleep.
the bomb explosion, yeah. Because normally he's like alive for a little while afterwards.
Yeah.
Damn, no gems.
I did 12. I think I killed him and I did 12 damage, by the way.
This fight blows. I already didn't like the normal Uthduna fight, but this fight was just even worse. Every single attack can push you away if Uthduna is in water, and his attacks do way too much damage, and he has way too much health. This fight took me and my friend over 40 minutes, which, if you couldn't tell, is pretty damn close to the time limit you already have. His moveset isn't even that different compared to his normal variant. I think he does the belly flop attack twice, and that's the only difference I can notice. Which sucks because the hitboxes on the belly flop are abysmal and also one-shot you. Hooray! For this fight, obviously I recommend really high water res, but Uthduna is also comically slow after finishing the combo, meaning weapons like Charge Blade, Switch Axe, Hammer, and Greatsword are excellent here. Him pushing you away with his waves also doesn't matter if you can attack him from a range, so the ranged options are pretty good here too. Be sure to bring lightning weapons and stay on your toes when it comes to the waves, toss a few status effects into the mix and you'll be good to go. He also managed to clear this hunt on the first try, but it took so much out of us.
Oh That was sick!
No, don't worry.
That was fucking awesome. Now you need to run. Now you need to run. Now you need to run.
Hey, my
No, we're good. I realized afterwards, I was like, oh no. Yes! Oh my god. That's definitely going in the video. I'm so fucking right now.
I better get jump. What?
Oh my god, that fight sucked so much fucking ass, bro.
Capcom, never cook again.
Udra was already a pretty good fight, but the fire was not very fun to play around. Now, with the Arch-Temper fight, you're basically dealing with the fire aura at all times, and once again, not really much changes in his moveset that much. Although he does gain a few new attacks, from a big oil nuke that leaves fire on the ground, to some alternative slaps of the tentacles, to even an oil ball projectile if you're far enough away. But the main thing making this fight different is the fire aura that he has. Because of this, having adaptability too is essential, since despite its description telling you it only negates environmental damage, it does actually protect you from not only New Udra's flame aura, but also the lingering fire he leaves behind with certain attacks. Defensive weapons are also extremely useful here, or weapons that have good part break potential. Things like the lance, gun lance are really good for this fight, as well as longsword and charge blade. Take some time to get a bunch of fire resistance and learn his different tells, and hopefully you'll go through this with no issue. When I first did this though, I didn't know adaptability to stop his fire aura, so I died more than I would like to admit.
I know that we will find our way. We'll do whatever it will take. And if we never reach the crowd, we'll take the whole thing down. I'm full of sin. No room for you to get in. My fists like bricks break down the walls. I'm stuck.
Jindahad is easily the hardest out of the 4 Apex monsters, but nowhere near as difficult as Arch-Tempered Archveld. As a big monster fight, it's prone to a few of the problems that Safi, Jiva, or Charge Valda have, but since he's not nearly as big as those guys, it's problems that are much more minute in comparison. The moveset also hasn't really changed that much from what I could tell, though the freezing AoEs are definitely an annoyance. This fight, throw defense completely out the window and focus on pure evasion. Jindahad forces you to keep moving with all of his attacks, so sticking in one place is a death sentence. Weapons like the longsword, dual blades, sword and shield like bowgun are great for this reason. If you do want to play the role of a tank though, bind resistance is essential, making it so you're completely immune to his freezing debuff. Although a defensive playstyle won't really help against a massive explosion attack, so I would still recommend a more agile playstyle. Stack some ice res and keep going down until you finally get him.
Burn me to the ground.
Ah, shit. I died. Oh well, I've still got 2 fights left until... That's not Jindahad. What the f*** is he doing here? Why is he here? I still haven't finished Heaven's Word. What the f*** is he doing here? Well, isn't this a surprise I wasn't expecting? Monster Hunter World had a collab with Final Fantasy, sure, but when Monster Hunter does collabs, it's mostly cosmetic outfits for you or your Palico. Given that the Street Fighter collab was pretty fleshed out though, I didn't really know what to expect from a Final Fantasy XIV collab. Turns out, instead of bringing some random fate boss like they did in World, they decided to bring one of the most infamous bosses in all of Final Fantasy XIV. I may not have fought Omega yet, but I've heard horror stories from friends who have. Despite this, though, I wasn't expecting this fight to be that difficult, to be honest. After all, before this, pretty much every part of the game was pretty easy for me. I was expecting to have this fight done in no time. That quickly went out the window. The normal fight alone took me at least 4 attempts, and when I learned about Savage, I knew it was over for me. But I didn't give up just yet. I knew if I just got the right setup, I could win this fight. If I just optimized a little better, I could take down this mechanical monstrosity. Here's what I did. First, I need to find some armor with both high base defense, fire, and ice res. When I was first going at it, I was wearing full Arcfeld Ace set, since it had pretty good fire res, and I could always increase my ice res through talismans and such. Though, after getting all the parts for it, I recommend new Udra Y set is probably the best defensively, giving by far the most fire res out of any armor, and having some decent ice res too. So that was my choice as the tank. The thing that's special about Omega, though, is that it's very likely that you'll need to have multiple teammates fulfilling specific roles. Kind of like Final Fantasy. Why would you on that shit? If I had to guess, the Sergio set is probably best offensively with something like Dual Blades, with some really good fire res and not awful base defense. It also comes packaged with Adrenaline Rush, Evade Window, Evade Extender, and other stuff like that. For weapons, the main thing you want for Omega itself is Thunder or Dragon damage, both of which it's weak to. If you don't want to spend hours farming for your custom weapon, it's probably best to either get the Arcveld, Zoshia, or Guardian Folger weapons. Arcveld weapons have pretty good elemental base damage, same with Zoshia, and the Guardian Folger weapons all have critical element 3, which is excellent if you have good affinity build. Ultimately though, if you want to be the most effective, farming for artisan weapons is the main way to do it, since you can tailor it specifically for Omega. When it comes to actual skills, for defensive playstyles, shield and guard up are going to be paramount to your survival, reducing stamina depletion and letting you block attacks that would normally be unblockable. For DPS builds, anything that lets you fully capitalize on micro dodges, repeated attacking, or wounds is going to be necessary, given that you hopefully won't have aggro for most of the fight. For support playstyles, which I forgot to mention until now, basically just get a bunch of wide range recovery up, recovery speed, and speed aiding. Also, while we're here on support, use any Hunting Horn with health regen. You can't dream of matching your teammates' damage, but that doesn't mean you should just be a heal bot. For this reason, I highly recommend the Zoshia weapon, since it has health regen, dragon damage, and pretty good slots for talismans. When it comes to the fight itself, everyone except the guy holding the shield should be at Omega's rear at all times, while the tank should aim for his face to try to get enmity as fast as possible to avoid a surprise aggro swap. From there, just dodge his AoE attacks, make sure to drag any mustard bombs away from your team, use the shields when they come up, break as many wounds as you can, and watch out for his charge. Things get a bit more dicey when entering the third zone, where Omega spawns a Nursilla, which needs to be killed in order to survive Omega's one-shot. For this, everyone should have his second fire weapon on standby and swap to an entirely aggro playstyle. Nursilla does nowhere near as much damage as Omega and should go down pretty easily, assuming everyone is full blasting the Nursilla with damage. Once you kill Nursilla, step into the shield and take a deep breath. You're almost there, just 2 more phases to go. The last of which ends with by far the most devastating attack, Panther Crater. A barrage of attacks in which you either have to be on your secret, have full stamina, or have full health and make sure you block everything. Once Panther Crater ends, you're basically home free. The rest of the fight should be a cakewalk, assuming he doesn't do Panther Crater again. Arkveld is the final arch-tempered monster, at least before the DLC, and man, what a send-off. With a moveset I can actually tell the difference between being able to absorb the energy around him to regain all of his Guardian and variant attacks, and a truly ridiculous amount of damage. You're gonna have to have this fight mastered to a T if you want to win. Arkveld doesn't really rely on specific statuses or big hitboxes like the other arch-tempereds. He just does a ton of damage, while also being surprisingly mobile. He has a few bigger attacks, but as long as you're blocking or you're on his rear, you should either be completely fine or have enough time to recognize what he's doing and react accordingly. Basically, any weapon can work because of this. As long as you have a good grip on what Arkveld is doing, you'll be fine. Despite this, however, this arch-temper took me the longest to first kill by a mile. Maybe not helped by my insistence of doing this fight solo to prove my capabilities as a hunter, but regardless, this fight was rough. Despite this, though, I never felt like I was cheated out of a death, and I felt like every death was my own fault, either through poor decisions or just getting too cocky. And I knew that if I kept going at it, I would eventually break through. Arch-tempered Arkveld might genuinely be one of my favorite fights in the whole series. Granted, I'm a new gen baby, so my experience is very limited, but for what it's worth, this fight is just fantastic. When you finally take down this behemoth, there's no other feeling like it.
Quest complete. You are amazing as always.
Hell yeah. It's just that easy, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, never mind. Everything everybody says about this game being easy is true. That was really... literally didn't even struggle a little bit. I definitely was not on my last cart. I definitely was not shitting my pants. Yeah. That just seemed pretty good. Excellent. There we go.
Finally, with the last arch-temper taken down, I can confidently say this game is not as easy as everyone says, and the arch-tempereds, along with Omega, are a welcome difficulty spike. I'm sure everyone sees the same way I do and agrees that despite the initial breeze of the early game, these difficult hunts are more than acceptable. Okay, I can't keep dancing around it. The Monster Hunter community has no idea what the it's talking about. There's one thing that genuinely pisses me off about Monster Hunter fans. If you go to Monster Hunter Wilds right now on Steam, you'll see that the rating is mixed, which is fine, all things considered. Plenty of good games released nowadays have that, and the reasons are usually justified. Bad or laggy netcodes for online, stunted gameplay structure, scummy business practice, all of these are valid reasons for a game to have a mixed reception among new and old fans alike. But if you look at the reviews for Monster Hunter Wilds and go down the timeline, the first thing you'll see people complain about is the performance when the game launched. I ran this game on launch with a 1660 Ti. The 1660 Ti is a 7-year-old graphics card.
Dude! What the fuck?
In computer language, that's basically a million years. Hell, I'm still running the 1660 Ti, and the performance has only gotten better. Of course, just because I wasn't having issues doesn't mean other people weren't either, and through a bit of research, this mostly came as a problem with AMD graphics cards. Now, I'm not computer savvy enough to give a good reason as to why this happens in the first place, but regardless, if multiple people with graphics cards stronger than mine are having issues, then it's either the rest of the parts are shit, which is definitely possible, or there's a larger issue at hand. However, at this point, I feel like I can safely say that this issue is solved. Next thing people complained about at the launch of the game is that the game was way too easy and the wounds trivialized the game. Every Monster Hunter game is easy at launch. Like, are we going to ignore that the hardest monster in world at launch was Tempered Kieran? I highly doubt Tempered Kieran was that much harder than Tempered Gore or Tempered Argveld. This is, in my opinion, a phony argument that is straw manning for the main point they're trying to make. The wound system is shaky at best. Personally, I like the wound system. It's not fully defendable, of course, it has some issues, but I like cool combat mechanics like this. I'm one of the few people who liked the Clutch Claw in Iceborne or the Wire Bugs in Rise. I think they enhance the gameplay and make things more interesting. And if you don't like them, don't use them. I know that sounds stupid, but you never have to break a wound using the dev intended method. You can just ignore it and go for the monster normally until it breaks just from you hitting it long enough. Then, once the first title update came out, people complained that Capcom was just locking parts of the game that were finished and released an unfinished product. Okay, so ignoring the fact Iceborne, Rise, and Sunbreak all did this too, I can understand why this sentiment exists. You literally could not fight Zoshia again until the first title update. Though, to be honest, missing out on one fight doesn't bother me that much. Zoshia itself was more of a hype moments and aura fight rather than one I would go back to regularly. That's just my opinion though, and they definitely should have given you a way to refight Zoshia at launch, but I don't buy the argument that Capcom was trying to release an unfinished game. What seems more accurate to me is that considering Title Update 1 was pretty lackluster and the second one was much bigger, I think Title Update 1 was when they actually wanted to release the game, but the big bad shareholders told them they had to reach quota before that. So they packaged Mizu and Zoshia in Title Update 1 and sent the game out as it was. Isn't that a good thing to do, and I won't defend it? But I do think that Monster Hunter fans are once again strawmanning simply because they don't like the title updates. Then, when Title Update 3 came out, introducing Omega, people complained it was too hard. What do you people want? Seriously, you first complained that the game is too easy, and now all of a sudden the game is too hard? Don't Monster Hunter veterans like a challenge? Isn't that what every veteran glazes the original games for? That they weren't afraid to get difficult? What the hell changed? You got soft hands now? You suddenly don't like it when the game wins? You want your easy path to victory? Pick a f***ing lane. And finally, we get to now, where the main thing people are complaining about is the price change. The price was lowered from 70 to 40 bucks. That's great. Wonderful actually, and I double checked the sales charts and it was on sale for about 30 bucks before the price reduction for a few weeks. So nobody should be complaining. So what's the issue then? Well, along with the price reduction, they introduced a gold edition of the game, costing 80 bucks. So what's so special about the gold edition? Oh, nothing crazy. It only includes about $450 worth of cosmetic DLCs, saving you a hefty penny for buying this version. This is where most people have issues. A lot of people say that the people who spend $70 before the price reduction are owed some compensation, or at least that the gold edition should have some sort of upgrade pack, letting you buy it even if you purchase the normal game. Now, I don't think people like me who pre-ordered the game for 70 bucks and have sunk hundreds of hours need any sort of compensation. I had fun without spending any extra cash. But that doesn't mean I don't sympathize with the people who bought the game a month or so back before the price reduction. 70 bucks is a tall ask, and learning that there's a better version for only 10 more bucks is pretty disheartening. Do I think people who bought the deluxe editions of Wilds before they removed them should be given some payback or refund? Yes. Do I think having an upgrade pack for the gold edition would be way better than having a wall of cosmetic DLC worth hundreds of dollars? Also, yeah. Do I think the idea of cosmetic DLCs to begin with are already stupid considering you have event quests which can give out those rewards for free? Absolutely. Do I think the price reduction of the base game of Wilds and the introduction of the gold edition was done as an act of greed? No. Sure, Monster Hunter, as well as Capcom as a whole, might alienate their older player base, but at the end of the day, isn't getting new blood into the community more valuable than complaining that you can't get all the DLC for 40 bucks? And here, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the biggest problem with the Monster Hunter community. They complain and whine about the wrong things. The game being too easy doesn't necessarily make the game bad. The game having a billion DLCs that only give you an outfit or a character edit voucher doesn't bring the whole game down. Not giving compensation when the price was reduced doesn't lessen the experiences this game has given you. The community around this series may be full of elitist, toxic, entitled assholes, but the game itself, I love it. And I'm not afraid to say it. Also, for the record, my game never crashed when I was recording. 1660 Ti, by the way. Maybe you got rid of that yee-yee-ass VRAM, you get some hunts on your checklist. See you, chumps.